Hello remoters, how are you? Mr. Del Pazzo here with another drawing video for you. Today we're going to draw a macaw. Got some nice student examples here. There's lots of different color macaws. We'll talk about that once we get done drawing it. We'll talk about how you can color it in. Here's a nice macaw. That one was a blue and gold macaw. This one is a scarlet macaw. Scarlet is a red. It's got red, some yellow, some blue. Hanging out, sitting on a branch. And this one's called a hyacinth macaw. Hyacinth. Very expensive if you're purchasing a macaw. They really cool color blue. Hyacinth macaw. Now, I'm going to zip right along. I'm going to go really fast because I don't want to make a 6.5 hour macaw video. So I'm going to zip right along. Feel free to pause it, rewind it, stop it, do whatever you need to. But I'm just going to try to do this in about 20 minutes or so. We shall see. You're going to need a piece of paper, a pencil, and eraser. And you're going to want to turn that paper vertical. Up and down, vertical, because our macaw is taller than he is wide. Make sure you draw lightly, not just because you're going to make mistakes, which you are, and I'm going to make some too. But because we're going to do a lot of guidelines in this drawing. Guidelines are just very light lines. They're there just to guide us. But then once we're done with those, we're going to erase them. So even if you make everything perfect, we're still going to do a lot of erasing. So I'll let you know when we're going to do the guidelines so you can make them extra light. Okay? So I'm going to start my macaw right up here in the upper right-hand corner. And my macaw is going to go kind of on a diagonal. So his head and beak are going to be here. His wing is going to be here. His tail will be here. So you can see how they're all like on an angle. We're doing that for a couple of reasons. Number one, that's kind of the way they look. But also, the biggest part of our paper, the longest part, is going to be corner to corner. And we want to try to get as much of him on the paper as we can. So I'm going to start by doing kind of like an arrow shape. Boom, boom. And on the top, I'm going to curve around and down. I should be below this bottom of this little arrow that I just made. You want to be below it. You can get as close to the side of paper as you want because nothing's going to be closer than that. From the middle of my arrow, I'm going to go out and curl around and touch the bottom. That's his top beak. And then his bottom beak, from this bottom line, I'm just going to curve up and right about halfway. So he's got a very big overbite, which most birds do. Their top beak is much larger and curvier and pointier than the bottom beak. Right, so that's his beak. Now we're going to do this little shape right here where his eye goes. And I'm going to go from the top of my arrow to the bottom of my arrow. Just going to sort of go over and then back down. It's kind of like a backwards number 7, kind of, sort of. You can make it, mine's kind of rounded. You can make yours pointy if you want. Actually, all 3 of my examples are kind of rounded. But it doesn't matter, either way. His eye is going to be close to the top. And then the pupil, wherever you want him looking, that's where that pupil is going to go. So if you want him looking forward, you'll put it on the right side like I did. This one's kind of looking down. That one's really looking down. You see, because the pupil is at the bottom of the circle. So you can have him looking wherever you want. And then macaws kind of have this pattern on their face. They kind of like, it's kind of like a long line, shorter, 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 kind of like that. And you can fit a couple of them on there. I can fit 2. I don't know how many you can fit. This person fit 3, which is fine. Now I'm going to draw the head and the neck. So my head's going to start right at the beginning of that arrow up there, right where the beak meets the face. So you can do this line smooth, or you can do it a little rough, or you can start it smooth and then go back and do, I kind of eliminated a step. You can make it smooth and then go back and do the kind of the fuzzy. Or if his feathers aren't ruffled, then you can make it smooth and leave it smooth. Right? This one's smooth. That one's smooth. This one's a little bit ruffled. Not too much though. But you'll notice that once I come around the top of the head, I'm starting to come down in a diagonal direction. This is sort of where I'm aiming for. Almost the bottom of my paper. That's kind of where everything's going to be headed. And then at the bottom of the beak, it's going to get a little bit wider as it goes down. My neck might be a little bit long, actually. So I think I'm going to erase a smidge of that and a smidge of that. We don't want it too long. We don't want it to look like a big turkey neck. Now, here comes one of those guidelines. Guideline alert. Draw lightly. I'm going to draw a basic shape for my wing, but I'm not really going to keep that shape. I'm actually not going to Sharpie, if you are going to Sharpie this thing, you're not going to Sharpie any of what I'm going to do right now. But it'll just kind of give us an idea of where all the feathers are going to go. It's going to be an egg shape. My egg is going to be, this is the bigger end of the egg, and then this is the smaller end of the egg. My egg is going to go right from my neck and my neck on a diagonal. So I'm going to make my egg fill up that shape so that kind of touches the top and the bottom. And then my egg's going to come down. I probably shouldn't be drawing lightly because then you won't be able to see it. But you are going to draw this really lightly. Because when we're done, we don't want to see an egg. Right? We don't want that egg. We don't want him to look like his head's, like he's being born. He's hatching. We don't want that. So you can see where my egg is bigger on the top, a little smaller on the bottom, right? An egg is not pointy, but it does have a large end and a small end, right? So that's just what I'm going to use for now. And my feathers are going to go kind of like around the egg. The egg should be inside of the neck. The neck should be like going around it. So now I'm going to do my tail, which is right here. My tail's not going to come off the bottom of this. It's going to come off the side. I need to still follow that diagonal line of mine. It's kind of like an ice cream cone and the ice cream is inside it. I'm going to put a line across there, but that is not going to be permanent. That's just kind of where my feathers are going to end, so very lightly draw a line right there. And then I'm going to do a little bit smaller tail that's coming out of that one, but it's smaller. Kind of goes down, in, and then off the paper. You might be going off the paper down at the bottom, which is actually probably even better because you can fit a little bit more. But what you don't want to do, you do not want to change the direction of parts just to go where you need them to. We want to just go on a diagonal and stay on that diagonal. Wherever it ends up, it ends up. Hopefully somewhere down here and not here or not here. Somewhere in the vicinity of the corner, okay? Now, I'm going to do 3 rows of feathers. So I need to section off my egg. It's going to look like an Easter egg in a second, I know. We're going to make 3 sections of the egg. So we're going to divide it up. These are guidelines. Guideline alert, because you are erasing these lightly. 3 sections. Sort of the same. I don't think mine are actually very even, but that's okay. So 3 evenly sized sections. Okay? Before I go any further, I need to do something about the top of my egg. It doesn't really look like a wing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the middle, and I'm going to flatten out the 2 sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase this side and flatten it out a little bit, and then I'm going to erase this side and flatten it out a little bit. Put my feathers back around there. Right? It's a little bit more like a wing now. This one has a rounded wing, a little rounder than mine. You can see where they just did like a point right there. Looks much more like a wing than my egg. But they started with an egg too. Okay? Now I'm going to do 3 rows of feathers. Here's the deal with the feathers. The faster you do them, the better they're going to look. So what we don't want to do, we don't want to go like this and put them next to each other. feathers aren't really next to each other. Feathers are overlapping each other. And so we don't want that. We're just going to do kind of like little check marks. They're not perfect. They're not all the same length. They're not all the same width. Just think of them kind of like a Nike swoosh or a check mark. So I'm going to start right over here in the end. This is where my feathers are going to go. You can go below that line. You can go above that line. It's just a guideline, just an estimation. Okay, so down and check. It can be thinner. It can be wider. You don't have to go all the way up to the shoulder if you don't want. And then my last feather will become the egg. So I'm going to go down and then whoosh, that last feather is the egg. That way I'm trying to get rid of that egg shape. So now my next row, these also can go all the way up and touch the first row if you want or not. But my first one is a feather. See how I kind of made it a feather and not so much an egg anymore. Check marks, tall, short, skinny, wide. They're all different. Just like people. Last row, I'm going to follow that curve. So they're going to start out short. They're going to get longer as we go and then short again. So I'm going to follow this line, but notice I'm not following it perfectly because it's a wing. It's not an egg. I'm going to erase that guideline later. Okay? So look, now it looks a little bit more like a wing. So we don't want to. We want it to look more like a wing, less like an egg. But the egg did come in handy. We did use it. Now my tail feathers, they're wider and they're longer. They kind of look like a samurai sword. Right? So my tail feathers are going to sort of like this. A samurai sword. So these are all going to be samurai swords right here. So this is the first one. Now I'm going to go down. Remember I told you that little line right there? That's what that line's for. That's where our tail feathers are going to stop. So my samurai swords, once again, we're kind of overlapping. 4, 5, 6, whatever. Okay? And I can erase that little line right there if I want. And then down here, since our feathers are going off the page, really all you need to do is just a few lines. We can't see the end of the feathers, so, we don't have to draw them. We can't draw what we can't see. Right off the paper. He does have another tail. That one's going to sort of drop straight down. Now, of course, it kind of goes out when he's flying, but he's just hanging out now. He's not flying, obviously. So right where the bottom of the egg is, right where my egg meets my tail, which is right about there. It's hard to see now. But we're going to draw that secondary tail, and that's sort of going to be a triangle. And we're going to make the feathers just like here, just a few lines. And that's going to go right off the paper. It's really long. And it's pretty much just going to go straight down. Like a big triangle. His claw. Now, his claw is wrapped around a branch, right? It's like this. So it's go like this. So however big my claw is, that's how big my branch has to be. So if you want a big branch, you're going to have to make your claw far apart. If he's on a little branch, his claw can be close together. So all I'm going to do, because he's kind of like his claw is kind of like up inside his feathers, I'm going to make like a little, almost like a crescent moon. And then I'll do one coming out of here. Kind of like right at the bottom of his belly. That's kind of a big claw, actually. See how it looks in there. Ugh, that's a terrible claw. That's horrible. There we go, that's a little better. All right, so now I'm going to have my branch coming out. Now, this person did an entire side of a tree. Actually, this person did an entire side of a tree. I'm just going to do a branch going across like this. If you want to do a tree over here, go for it. If he's like sitting close to the trunk of the tree, you can add it. All right, look, came out very nice. Looks excellent. Now it's a branch, right? So we can have it go wherever we want. So I'm going to have mine come out. Maybe this is like a broken piece. Maybe that's a little. So I can have it branch off like this. It can go off. Right? We can have as simple or complicated of a branch as you want. You can even do a little bit of texture in there. You know, we Sharpie these lines and then we watercolored over them, but we'll talk about that in a second. Right now I'm going to have the branch. Where's it going to come out on the other side? Well, probably right about there. So this one can come up. Like I said, as simple or as complicated as you want. Maybe there's a broken branch. Whatever you want to do. Oh, that looks terrible. And if you want to do the side of a tree, you know, you can do that if you want. Whatever you want to do, people. Right? And that's our macaw. I know, I went like really fast. There's no way you're not going to pause or rewind it, and that's fine. I understand perfectly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my red marker and I'm going to draw in red everywhere where there was a guideline that you need to erase before you trace this or Sharpie it or anything. If you have a skinny Sharpie, like a really, really extra fine point, they work really good for this because we have a lot of little parts and little feathers and things. So if you have a relatively pointy regular Sharpie, they're called fine point, but they're not really that fine. Right? If you have one of these guys, and it's relatively new, you should be fine. If it's an old one and it's a really thick line, you might want to go with something else like a pen or something really skinny. So this line we erased. Can you see that? Does it look red? I hope so. This line we erased. This line we erase, or we're going to erase. That line we're going to erase. We are tracing that, but remember we fix that. So those are the guidelines, and of course, I could really trace the entire egg if I wanted to, because really we want the edge to be feathers, not an egg. Right? Mine is sort of egg-shaped, but I kind of went out and in and kind of made it look less eggy. So like I said, if you're going to watercolor it, which these three examples are, first thing you're going to want to do is do a little Googling and look up macaw. You're going to see so many different kinds. These are just three of the many different macaws. And you can decide, you know, there's some really colorful ones out there. Some that are fake. They're like Photoshop, but you should be able to tell the difference. So we watercolored it because the colors of the macaw, the feathers, like really blend together. And the watercolor works well. So if you plan on watercoloring it, trace the whole thing, minus the guidelines. Trace the whole thing in something skinny and permanent. And then find a nice color picture, or put your iPad up, whatever, find a nice picture on the Google Images. And you can watercolor it. Branch is probably going to be brown or something like that, brown or gray. If you want to do it in color pencils, that could also work. They blend really nicely together. So, where you've got like feathers that are going from green to blue or orange to yellow, or red to yellow and things like that, you can actually color and blend really nice with color pencils. So that would actually work nicely too. If you want to do a background, you're going to have to decide where the canopy is, right? The canopy is the tops of the trees in the rainforest. So at some point, our trees are going to end and our sky is going to begin. So if you want mostly sky, then your canopy would be down here. If you want mostly trees, your canopy would be up here. So someplace, and of course the canopy is not going to be perfect. No one's up there trimming the tops of trees in the rainforest. At least I don't think they are. So very imperfect tops of trees. And then you could blend yellows and greens together for trees if you want. And of course a sky, you could do anything. Daytime, nighttime, whatever you want to do. As always, if you guys need paper, right? This is a really nice piece of paper to do this drawing on, 12 by 18. I've got the paper here. Let me know you need paper. Have mom and dad send me an email or send me a message in Teams and just say, I need some paper. Can you leave some for me down at the front entrance? I'll roll it up, put your name on it, somebody can pick it up. Or if you have a neighbor or a relative or somebody who's going to be visiting your house or your street and you want them to bring it to you and they're in school here, let me know and I will go hand it to them. And then they can bring it to you and they can save your trip to school. And I'll give you 5, 6, 7 sheets and that will get you through like a few months because each one of our drawings are 2 classes, right? First one, you're going to draw it. First 40 minutes. Our classes are now 40 minutes, not 36 minutes. So during your art time, you want to draw it the first week. Second week, color it. This might be more than a 2-class project, and that's perfectly fine. If you need to push back. The other projects, right, when I put the assignments in there, they're always there. So if you don't get to it on time, it's fine. Whenever you get it done, send me a picture of it in Teams. I definitely want to check it out, okay? And if you need paper, let me know. Hey guys, I'll see you later. Bye. Miss you.